Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well. And today, before we start the video, I just wanted to give a quick box office update for The Joker, which came in yesterday on Monday at number 2, just behind Terminator Dark Fate. Dark Fate made $2 million, where Joker, which has now been out for 32 days, mind you, made $1.1 million. So Joker is still making roughly around $1 million a day here domestically. I'll wait to see what the numbers look like for today on Tuesday, tomorrow, when those numbers are released, and that will give us an idea of how much money it's making per day. And if the $1 million per day continues like it was and has been for the last couple weeks, then it seems to indicate that there's a very good chance the $1 billion number could indeed be matched this upcoming weekend. Of course, I'll give you updates whenever we get any major dumps from the foreign markets as well. But right now, Joker is doing incredibly well, beating out films like Maleficent, which has been out for half the amount of time, beating out newcomer Harriet, and also getting very close to Terminator Dark Fate. And I would actually assume that by the end of the week, or as we get closer to the end of the week, we will likely see Joker creep back up to the #1 spot for the weekday performance, which would be very impressive, especially for a film, as I've said previously, that's been out for 32 days. It's very rare that a film does this well, especially for this long. So huge shout out once again to Joker for doing so well. But today we're going to talk about my boy Chris Stuckmann. So Chris Stuckmann, I've been a huge fan of his for a very long time, probably for, I don't even want to date myself here, but probably for the past 5 to 10 years I've been watching him. I know that's kind of a weird range, but I've been watching him for a very, very long time. Him, Chris Stuckmann, John Flickinger, and also Jeremy Johns have been my 3 go-to movie review critics for the past 5 to 10 years. And it's been amazing to see the growth of their channels, amazing to see how they've changed or how they've stayed the same, and it's amazing to go back and watch old videos. But Chris Stuckmann has always been one to me that I've always been able to appreciate. He's also been one, I think, that has gotten a lot of hate, has gotten a lot of people, calling him out because of positive reviews of films like The Last Jedi, because of other comments that he's made in some of his videos. But something that I've always liked about him is that he's always been very consistent. He's never been back and forth. He's never been afraid to speak his mind on an issue. He never gives a movie a good review for the sake of giving a good review. He's given some very harsh reviews, and he's been very critical of a lot of different films for a lot of different reasons. And so if there's one thing that Chris Stuckmann, in my mind, isn't, it's a shill. And I know that some people have thrown that word around with him, but I just don't see it. I see a guy that just loves movies, that is a huge fan of film, is kind of like talking about the discussion that we've been having recently with people like Martin Scorsese coming out trying to say that the new Marvel films or that the big budget films we have nowadays are more akin to theme parks than to actual real cinema. And he's tried to clarify his comments by pointing out, saying, what I mean by that is that theme parks are great and entertaining. They're a new form of entertainment, but they kind of, in a lot of ways, overshadow and box out some of the smaller creators, some of the smaller theaters, some of the smaller movie studios and some of the smaller filmmakers from actually getting their films into a cinema. And so Scorsese's fighting out against that because he's speaking for some of the lower budget directors who are not getting the opportunity to show their movies because companies like Disney buy out all the theaters and box out a lot of the competition, which would include smaller budget films and smaller productions as well. And to me, he's almost like, if I had to compare Chris Stuckmann to anyone, to me, he's like the Martin Scorsese of film reviewers. I know that might be an odd comparison, but it really is. He has more of a high mind when it comes to film reviews. He definitely takes things at a different level. I've had to watch some of his movie reviews because sometimes he is able to reveal certain things about a film that I just never understood. Some of my favorite things he's ever done have been the Analyze This or the Analyze movie reviews, where he's gone into films. I want to say it was his review of a film like Enemy, which featured Jake Gyllenhaal and was one of the great films directed by Denis Villeneuve. And it was a movie that by the end, you were like, what the hell's going on? And he did an excellent breakdown. He's done that for a lot of really bizarre and obscure films. And I've always appreciated him because of his patience, because of his ability to really think back for a second and not just say, oh, I don't understand it, so therefore I'm going to hate it. He's actually reveled in not understanding certain films. He's reveled in being able to have to dive into and really go deep with a lot of the film analysis that he's had to do. So I've always appreciated him for that reason. And some people might hate that I say that. Some people might not agree with me on that comment, but I've always really appreciated what he has to say. And it's moments like this that's being covered here by our boys over at Bounding Into Comics that I really understand and really appreciate him more, because he's also very straightforward. He's a straight shooter, and he's always going to be honest about things going on. And so in a recent video, specifically the one in his review of Countdown, he made an interesting comment about how in the film there was 4 sexual harassment subplots added into the film film that really just kind of came out of nowhere and quite bizarre. My boy John Flickinger also talked about it too, saying, yeah, there's a lot of woke elements to this movie because they add in these random subplots that don't really add anything to the film, but are obvious attempts to try and bring in, the hashtag Me Too era into this specific film, but also that there are these other films that try and add modern political commentary when there really is no need for it. And so he said this in his video. He says, for the past year, I've had multiple scripts that I've talked to many studios about, and some have showed real interest. One of the biggest notes that I've always gotten back is that if you included some kind of social commentary or something that was in the news today or something that people are talking about a lot, that might make your script easier to sell. Basically admitting that most scripts in Hollywood nowadays almost have to, including films that really aren't that good, got a lot of really bad reviews for Countdown, for example, and also a lot of modern-day horror films, that it's interesting that that film was still made, and one of the reasons why it was easier to sell is because of the social commentary that was in the film. For those that don't know, Chris Stuckmann has been trying to he is actually his own filmmaker. He's made a couple of short films, and he's trying, I think, to work on a feature-length film. I know that he's in film school, and he's been trying to really push it. It's been one of his passions for a long time. He's always loved making films. I remember him showing clips from those those very well-intentioned, and I still think quite amazing renditions of Indiana Jones that he did when he was younger. And so he's always had that filmmaker's mindset. And so I've always been interested, and I can't wait to actually watch some of the films that he makes, because if he's this meticulous with his film reviews, I can only imagine how meticulous he is when it comes to actually directing and writing a script. But it's sad that people like him are getting shut out and are not being given a chance because he's focusing more so on telling a really interesting and compelling story, I would assume, rather than focusing on social commentary. It's sad that a film has to be sold nowadays on social commentary elements and on political motivations rather than the actual story itself. It explains as to why we have so many films being made nowadays that are flopping and are not doing well, and why people are saying, why would I support indie film when all they're doing is pushing political points? I think that's a fair argument to make, especially when it's already so rare that these films get into the box office in the first place with all of the competition going on, but let alone especially a film like this, which really has no reason to exist, but likely got that extra push to actually be made because of that underlying social commentary, that underlying woke social commentary. Josiah Rises says this: we've talked about how they aren't using, so my boy Josiah Rises, they aren't using these things because they actually care about diversity and things like that. They're doing these things because they know that they are selling points that they can use to continue to not only drive certain people to the theaters to see these movies, but it's easy marketing, it's easy PR. Everyone knows that the mainstream media is going to eat up everything they say about this stuff. Here's the other thing that I would add to Josiah's point. It's not just the media that will jump on these films that have these underlying woke narratives, but it's also people like me, people like him, people like Geeks and Gamers, all of these critical YouTube channels that are critical of places like Disney and critical of woke culture and films. We also give them free PR, whether we want to admit it or not, we do. It's pretty negative PR, and I think that most people that listen to us and agree with us end up not seeing the films and talking to their friends and their family saying, hey, here's why you probably shouldn't see this. So I think it actually has an effect where it does drive down the box office for certain films. How effective it is, how much, can I get a number? Can I get a percentage of how effective we are? I mean, flip a coin. It's really hard to really say, but I do think that there is a point to be made here that there is indeed this not only eating up by the mainstream media, but also by the new media as well. We also, even if it's negative commentary, as they say, any type of coverage, bad negative coverage is still good. Bad headlines is still good because your name is still being talked about. I know that Donald Trump, for example, has run on that a lot, saying, hey, they're talking about me, they're obsessed with me right now, and he was able to use it to his advantage. And you see that sometimes studios will do the same thing. Keep in mind, when Joker came out, it was the media that went after the film, but all they ended up doing was giving it free promotion, even though they were bad-mouthing it, even though they were criticizing it, and now Joker has made $934 million and is on the pace to possibly even cross the billion-dollar mark by as early as this weekend. So there is something to be said for that. And I must say, again, I need to give a huge shout out to Chris Stuckmann, because it's really hard for someone like him to come out with a giant channel trying to get his name in the industry, and for him to reveal something like that, I think could have a negative impact on his career. I hope it doesn't. But when you reveal certain things about the industry, and if you reveal one of the things that is, oh, your script is more likely to sell if you have a woke narrative in it, I think that that is starting to reveal more of what we probably already knew, what many of us already expected, but it's actually going to be now more confirmed by someone who is actively trying to get involved. And to me, it just makes me even more pissed at movie studios nowadays because they are more cared about. They do care more about these indie films that have political messages to it that really aren't that great and really aren't worthy of being told. They do care more about the giant, big budget popcorn film that they can make an entire franchise out of, rather than films like The Irishman that care more about telling an independent story that take years to make and years of passion and years of quality filmmaking. And I think that there's something to be said to all of these things. So I just want to give my support to Chris Stuckmann here because I think that he's absolutely right. I know that this video came out a while ago and it's just now getting covered, but I hope that this doesn't hurt his opportunity to get his movie out there, because I think we need more voices like his out there who want to make original stories, who want to take the passion that they've been developing for the, that used to be what movies were about, where people giving their passion, giving their all on screen, whether they were an actor, whether they were a writer or a director. And I think that we've fallen so far away from it because now the studios, it's almost like we're in a new age studio system where it used to be where the studios would own the actors, essentially would own the rights and own the lives of the actors for a certain period of time. And now it's like the movie studios now just own cinema, now own the movies. And now it's only going to be woke narratives in indie films or giant big budget films that might have narratives, but they might not. But the main point is, oh, if we can't make a franchise out of it, it's not worth saying anymore. And it's really sad to see the current age that we're in. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Do you think Chris Stuckmann is right here? Do you think that there is something more going on and that we should probably try and call it out a little bit more often? Please let me know in the comment section below. Also, do you agree with my boy Josiah Rises that they are indeed trying to push these narratives because they want us to, they want the media to pick it up and to move with it? But also, I think that I might have a point too. So let me know what you think about my thoughts about, do you think that the negative PR is also what they're trying to get? I honestly think that there's definitely a situation where Disney, for example, is trying to get channels like mine and Geeks and Gamers and others to talk negatively about Star Wars because they want at least someone to talk about Star Wars. No one else is going to talk about it even in a positive light for the most part. So, hey, might as well get that negative press coverage and might as well try and stoke those fires because maybe it'll inspire someone to go see it. I think that it's having the negative impact. I don't think it's helping them as much as they think it is, but let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Also, let me know, do you think that we're going to see Joker end up surpassing Dark Fate this week in the dailies for the box office? Let me know that also in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.